Jane Fonda is more than an icon. They are the embodiment of resilience. But today, at 87, they're enduring a chapter more brutal than any role, a quiet descent into stillness, where time, memory, and illness are constant companions in a house full of echoes. They rise later now, on mornings when Los Angeles light leaks through the shades in careful stripes and finds a silver thermos on the table, already warm. The calendar on the fridge, once a raceway of arrows and airport codes, has emptied into gentle routines. A short walk to the garden, a hand on the doorframe a second longer than before, a pause to gaze at the framed photo of a daughter laughing in a kitchen from another decade. Those close to her say a hush has settled over the phone that never stopped ringing. A few invitations were declined with gratitude. A long flight was quietly canceled. On a recent afternoon, a driver idled by the curb of a medical building, and a passerby caught the outline of that familiar jaw beneath a soft scarf. No statements followed, just the soft closing of a car door and the unremarkable miracle of getting home. Finances are not headlines, but choices. Some are simply smaller now. Fewer people on the payroll, a charitable donation rerouted to a friend's foundation, that antique desk finally sold because papers matter more than furniture. There's talk of unfinished projects, scripts that might have been, a documentary that remains a folder on someone's desktop, set aside because the day has only so much grace to lend. The goodbye is not a press conference. It is a slower wave from a porch where the jasmine has learned the shape of the railing. But what shaped a life strong enough to face this? It starts in Manhattan with a last name heavier than a trunk full of costumes. In one apartment, there is a watch on a dresser that belongs to a father who becomes myth before he becomes man, and a mother whose laughter rings like cut crystal until it doesn't. The child watches grown-ups try to stitch shadows into curtains that keep out the morning. She is taught to keep her shoulders straight at the dinner table and to speak softly at premieres. When she runs her fingers across a movie poster in the hall, she is not admiring fame. She is checking the corners of paper for tears. There is a wound that doesn't show up in photographs. She learns early that applause cannot cross certain thresholds and that grief can fit in an envelope the size of a letter from boarding school. She keeps secrets the way other children collect seashells, each one a tiny echo of a larger storm. But there is also a seed, planted in a theater where a velvet curtain flutters in the draft. When she watches faces in the dark tilt toward a screen and become one breathing animal, she wonders if the moving image is the only room where truth can bear the lights without flinching. The first flame doesn't arrive with the spotlight. It arrives as a small note written in the margin of a script. You're allowed to be real. And someone, one teacher, one mentor, one director who looks past the last name, hands her a key she didn't know she was waiting for. Rejection seasons are precise. They are the same winter coat worn across 3 Februaries. They are screen tests where the room goes quiet and not for the right reasons. They are careful smiles from gatekeepers who say she is too patrician for grit, too pretty for danger, too herself for the softness they've already sold. She waits in hallways that smell of varnish and dust, watching other names go first. She works to pay for waiting, voice lessons, movement classes, a studio that looks out on a brick wall. She's compared to the man at the top of her family tree, as if you can audition against your own last name. She learns to be chilly in order to survive heat, but here's where it gets complicated. The no's carve a channel the yeses will later need. On a night when the city's lights are wet with rain, a casting director who has already erased her once asks her to read again, only this time like she swallowed a secret and refuses to let anyone have it. She gives them flint and stillness. She gives them a woman who has learned to fold vulnerability into steel. When the reading ends, the room doesn't explode. It exhales. The encounter that changes everything isn't fireworks. It's a quiet door that doesn't close. The first reinvention is not an accident. It is an insistence. She will not be a photograph. She will be motion and breath and the tightening of a jaw that tells the audience far more than a paragraph of dialogue could. A partnership sharpens the edges. A director who understands that her power lives in silence well held. A cinematographer who knows the camera should come to her rather than demand she come to it. She lowers her voice half a step. She learns the sweet science of stillness. She studies women not yet written and pours them into roles that will be. She chooses scripts that let her build rooms where complicated women can breathe. There is glitter and there is grit. One day, she is a poster on the wall of a college dorm. Bare feet, wild hair, a science fiction siren, and another day she is the private detective whose gaze could calibrate a city's moral compass. The new lane widens into a highway. Audiences lean in not because she is a star, but because she is a mirror no one expected to deserve. Success arrives like an orchestra that has been tuning for years, finally striking the first true chord. But success is a ticket that always lists a cost, and it never tells you the price in advance. Breakthrough turns to trap the moment, an image hardens into a cage. She is the sex symbol who won't stay on the poster, the radical who refuses the easy narrative, the daughter who loves her father in a language that requires making art about wars both public and private. Fame wants simplicity. She offers the opposite. Headlines ask whether the person eclipses the performer, whether politics can live in the same body as craft, whether contrition pays off debt you didn't know you carried. How many times can a woman be told who she is by people who have never been in the room where she decided it? Is the role you play for the world the same as the one you play to save yourself? The trap holds, then loosens. A public triumph, a night where her name is called and she climbs stairs that feel like cliffs, arrives and deepens a private fracture. She smiles for the cameras with a hand that still trembles when the curtain falls. She takes a breath before the parties, leaves early, and learns how to make tea alone in a kitchen that wasn't built for solitude. And then the next morning, she goes back to work, because that is the only religion that has never left her at the altar. Somewhere, an old friend knocks on a dressing room door and places a photograph on the counter. A younger face, half angry and half on fire. She looks at it and decides to be both less and more than that image, all at once. Love never arrives as a headline, it walks in as a person carrying groceries. The house becomes a different kind of set, the kind where the blocking is cooking and the dialogue is ordinary tenderness. The family isn't a tableau for magazines. It is a living organism that knows how to be chaotic and holy in the same afternoon. There's laughter at a table with a shift in light that comes only in late autumn. There's a handwritten note left on a piano. Back soon. Don't forget to eat. She learns the scholarship of apology and the doctorate of forgiveness. She learns that a child's voice can become the map you use to find the way out of a storm. There are seasons where she chooses home over the camera. Some roles are declined not because she cannot play them, but because the dog will need medicine on those months, or a friend is moving through an unspeakable loss, or because the body has limits even a legend must respect. A bookshelf accumulates drafts of scripts circled with red pencil. The kitchen counter accumulates mugs. Between them is a life that does not need a review to be real. And that's when everything changed. The blow doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It arrives in the mail as a test result, or it slips on a stair, or it unfolds in a whisper at 2 a.m. The word diagnosis is a door you don't know how to open and cannot keep shut. The public already knows of one battle she faced with fierce transparency. She even found remission and spoke of it with gratitude. But the private chapters are harder to share. The quiet kind of fight that happens between the kitchen and the bed, in the tension of opening a pill bottle, in the arithmetic of energy that every elder learns sooner or later. Some days she is strong enough to climb the hill where the city looks small from the lookout, and some days the hill is the distance between the chair and the window. Dignity is choosing which photographs get taken. She allows herself to be seen when the seeing can help someone else live through their own hour in the storm. But most of the time, the light stays soft and the blinds stay at half-mast. She gets good at saying no with kindness, at treating time like a guest who deserves clean sheets and a quiet room. The timeline compresses into the value of a conversation held without glancing at a phone. She looks at a jacket draped over a chair and thinks of all the roads it has traveled. Facing time's arrow becomes a way of honoring time's gift. When the world narrows, she returns to first principles. Morning stretches on a mat that has seen 2 decades of knees and prayer. A notebook on the table becomes a ledger of gratitude and stubbornness. She writes a name of someone to call and then underlines it, twice. She walks her small loop around the block and stops to admire the same sycamore that has been telling the neighborhood the weather for 40 years. Love remembers to leave the porch light on. Fans remember a line from a movie that saved them at an age when the world felt like a room with no doors. She remembers the smell of her mother's perfume at precisely the moment the kettle begins to whistle, and the memory is both a wound and a salve. What endures when applause fades? What does love remember when the crowds go home? She opens a box of old letters and holds one like a bird too tired to fly. The envelope flap is brittle with age. The handwriting leans forward, eager and unsure. For a minute, the years collapse, and the girl with the heavy last name looks up from a page into the future that found her after all. Then the kettle sings again, and she returns the letter to its nest. The public fog thickens in the era of endless scroll. Someone posts an old photo with a new caption, and 10,000 strangers say goodbye before it's time. Rumors dress up as obituaries, lies wear the suit of concern. Now, if you're wondering how to see through it, look smaller, not bigger. Look at the tilt of a hand on a railing. Watch the way she steadies a friend first, before she steadies herself. In the last filmed conversation, there was a moment, you had to squint for it, when she reached into her coat and pulled out that red scarf she wore during those protest days and smoothed it once, like a flag being folded. She is not saying farewell to stir fear. She is saying it because honesty has always been her last and first politics. She has taught people how to carry their bodies without apology, how to work and rest, how to look a camera in the eye and tell the truth even when it hurts. The ledger of her life isn't numbers, it's scenes. A daughter takes a father's arm on a stage and offers him a piece of the home they could never build in time. Somewhere, a family watches that moment and decides to make a different phone call. A film about the cost of war becomes the blanket a veteran uses to sleep through a night that would otherwise be unbearable. 3 friends in a snowy town screen a comedy about office rebellion and leave the theater plotting their first act of courage, which looks small to everyone else and enormous to them. A young woman standing in a dorm room tapes a photo of a certain 1970s character to the wall above her desk, not as a pin-up, but as a compass. A son watches his mother do morning stretches on a VHS tape and learns that strength is less about biceps than about showing up. Colleagues tell stories in 2 beats because that's how memory survives. She never missed a line reading, they say. She brought a pot of soup to a set where the day had gone sideways and reminded everyone that art is a human sport. She apologized to a worker whose name she forgot the day before and never forgot it again. She looked a young actress in the eye and told her to do the difficult version, not the easy one, and then held her hand after the take. She kept saying yes to the work that frightened her into being brave. How many lives can one life touch without keeping score? How many candles does a single match light before it burns out? If goodbye comes, it will not be a speech. It will be a room. There will be a jacket on the back of a chair that still holds the shape of her shoulders. There will be a seat at the table that no one claims for a while, out of respect for the ghost of warmth it still keeps. A dog, old, careful, devoted, will wander to the front door at the hour where arrivals once happened and wait. Because love doesn't own a clock. We will choose to talk in the present tense a little longer than grammar permits, because that is one small power the living possess. We will tell the story of her hands as if they are still holding a cause, a friend, a face she memorized as a map home. But here's where it gets complicated. Goodbye is not the opposite of love. It is one of love's dialects. It says, I am learning how to carry you differently. It says, I will find you in the oranges on the counter and in the clip of laughter on a radio show from 1981 and in the way my own bones tell me to stretch before I go out into the day. Love does not end. It changes form. Some days it feels like a trick played by grief. Some days it feels like a promise that time can't break. And so we come back to the present. The house, the thermos, the jasmine learning the railing. The woman who wore a red coat to be arrested on purpose because the cause was bigger than her calendar has earned her stillness. The woman who navigated a past of public fury and private repair has earned the right to speak softly and to be believed. The woman who turned the camera into a confessional and a confession into a revolution has earned the quiet in which revolutions root. If you listen closely, you can hear it. The soft thud of a book closing on a lap, the scrape of a chair on tile, the faint click of a porch light switched on before dusk. She is saying goodbye like someone who always knew that the word goodbye contains good. She is leaving not a vacuum, but a trail, of films that insist on human complexity, of movements that refuse to apologize for caring, of hearts that learned the choreography of courage by watching her move through the world. This is where we leave her for now, near a window that frames the last, best light. For us, the ledger stays open. For us, there's work to do that she would recognize, staged not on sets but at dinner tables, where truth is auditioning for a permanent role. For us, there is a scarf in a drawer that we might take out and smooth once, for luck, before walking into the day with our shoulders a little squarer and our hearts a shade braver. Whatever gossip swirls outside, we know the quieter story, the one that lives in objects and gestures and the pace of breathing in a room where someone beloved is learning how to rest. If you've ever felt seen by her work, write that memory down so it can survive you. If you've ever learned a kind of strength from her, pass it to someone who hasn't met it yet. If you've ever been angry on her behalf, try transforming that anger into the kind of action she would have recognized as useful. The goodbye is not a period. It is an ellipsis that points toward you. Whatever time gives or takes from here, one thing won't move, the way her story lives in yours. If that light ever found you in the dark, leave one more for them before you go. If their story ever held a light for you, tell me the moment you'll keep I rid every one.